Hey guys, guess who's back? The original Pico, especially the Pico perch. You ready to run and gun? It's time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101. Man, Pico lures. That's an old school name right there. Something I ain't seen since I was a kid. I can remember being in tackle stores, and there were few and far between. I only remember seeing just a few of them, and I think I had one. I'm not 100% sure. I had a handful of lures when I was a kid, but that was a long time ago. But I ran across this, and I actually saw it on Retro Bassin that Chris did a thing on them, I don't know, close to a year ago maybe. And I just kind of put it in the back burner. Really didn't remember much about it after that. But I just kind of ran across them online one day, and I was like, So I went online and started looking them up. And I thought it would be really cool to call the company to ask them. I was actually asking them if this particular color right here, green shad, was the same green shad that was offered in another model, because the picture wasn't there. We're kind of find out the owner, Mitch Glenn, really nice guy, got a good sense of humor about him, very knowledgeable. He was telling me that he was in the process of updating the website or getting it updated, and so that's why the pictures weren't there. Well, we started talking. And so I basically just kind of did an interview with him and told him I was wanting to do one of these videos. And I played around with the Pico on the water, and I've kind of figured out the little nuances of it. And really, as far as lipless crankbait goes, this kind of fits my style of fishing better than, say, a trap. Or Cordell Spot's kind of up my alley too a little bit, but it's a little bit smaller profile, a little thicker, and it has completely different action than any of the others out there. This is not a burning bait. You can't burn this bait, it'll blow out on you. Okay? That's, other crankbaits are like that too. This is a 3/8, 2 1/4 inch, a little bigger than the Bayou Boogie, but the Bayou Boogie was a copy. This is the original. It has a knock in the front. Hear that? This guy rattles in the back. And it's a thicker sound. Hear that? It's a much thicker sound than some of the other ones out there. Almost has like an old school kind of sound to it. But I've got these in like a clear, chartreuse, of course the green shad. I got what they call the mud bug, which is a crawfish color. And for winter, early spring, I got a red craw. And these are done old school style, the old stripes on them. I'll hook myself. Got the old stripes on them. And the only thing I've done to these is I've added mustad triple grips and an oval split ring. Now when these come out of the package, they don't come with junk. Mitch puts on mustad black nickel hooks and no snap or split ring at all, because I've got oval rings on mine. I might end up going to a snap just to make it easier to change colors, and that's probably why he did it like that. Now this has the old school setup. It's got the old hardware to where the hooks only have but so much movement. And that's okay. You can catch fish like that. Me personally, I'd rather go ahead and put a split ring in that connection, a split ring back here, so that these hooks can go all over the place. But that's just me. You don't have to do that. You can use the sucker stuck out of the box the way it is and keep on fishing. I just like a triple grip. As far as on a lipless crankbait, I think this holds better. But that's just my opinion. Don't take mine. Do things for yourself. Figure it out yourself how you like things done. Like I said, 2 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an ounce. One thing I like about this bait is when you cast it out there, it doesn't go kaboosh in the water. It has a very nice soft entry, especially if you're the kind of guy that likes to feather that spool just before it hits the water, like you do with a spinnerbait. You can make a spinnerbait jerk back towards you just a hair and it lands in the water softly. You can do that with these baits. And slow cranking them, they do a really good job. Moderate speed. I'm using a 5 to 1, so a moderate semi, type retrieve does a really good job. I like to crank it, pause it, crank it, pause it. And every once in a while, twitch it, and slow pull it to where just barely feeling it moving on the rod tip, and I'll stop it. What's cool about this is when it hits the water, it will actually sink in a downward position just like this. But when you're cranking it and you're stopping it, the water pressure that builds around it, as it sinks, it'll do this. That's cool. I like that. It's not a deep running lure. If you want this to sink to the bottom, it's about every 1.5 maybe 2 seconds per foot. That's about the longest time. The line that I've found to be best used for this is 12-pound mono. I use a 12-pound XT. And a 12-pound XT is, I think, is a 14 thousandths diameter. You can use fluorocarbon, but keep it light. Keep it in that 13, 14 thousandths range as far as diameter. Because I've used 14 on this before. I was experimenting with it last weekend, and a 14-pound test was almost too much. It was it didn't have the action it had until I went to a 12-pound, which I know, a couple thousandths of an inch doesn't matter, but it was enough, and it really made that bait come alive. I think if you use 10-pound, you're pushing it. You could do it, but you might be pushing it, especially if you're fishing around cover. You might be kind of pushing that. But that's what I found with these. You got the Pico the Pico pops. You got the sideways shad. He still has parts for the old slashers, the prop baits. He actually has parts in inventory from the originals back in the 60s and 70s. So to give you a brief history of it, Pico came out. These little dudes here came out originally in 1933, and have been copied everybody since. That's the original lipless crankbait. Pratco at one time even leased Pico and came out with their Pop R, the Bayou Boogie, things like that. Mitch in his collection has some Rebel Pop R's that say Rebel on the bottom and Pico on top, and they both came in a Pico box or a Rebel box. So was the Rebel Pop R an original design? Probably not. But still, to this day, it is one of the #1 popping lures. They also had a deal with H&H spinners. If you guys are familiar with H&H spinners, that's where I get a lot of my rubber skirts from for my spinner baits. They even have their little spinner bait. The H&H spinner is basically what it's called. And they actually got that from Pico. Pico originally made that spinner. They needed money back in the 40s, so they would make them for H&H. They gave them some molds, let them pour their own. Mitch still has the original molds. So I'm kind of looking forward to see if he'll come out with something like that from the original molds, not the molds they're making now in H&H. I don't like where the wire sits on the head. But that's just me. I asked him how long he's had Pico. He's had it now for 6 years as of, I think, July, as of this month. He's had it for 6 years. So I asked him, I said, well, are you part of the original family? He says, no, I'm not part of the original family. So he gave me a brief history of it. He said a family had bought it after Nichols had passed away. And it got passed around from family to family a couple of different times. And eventually a fly fishing company had bought Pico, tried to get it off the ground, couldn't go public with it, threw it in a storage unit, sold to a kayak salesman. He took it out of storage, he made a few of the Pico pops and stuff like that. Ended up to where he didn't like it. He didn't like doing it. And sold it to Mitch. So I asked Mitch, I said, well, what did you do before you bought Pico? Well, come to find out that he was the man behind Archie Lures for 18 years. He ran Archie Lures for 18 years. And I was like, oh, well, everybody knows who Archie is. Unfortunately, the guy who bought Archie from him has pretty much put the company out of business, and from what I understand from Mitch, he shut it down a few weeks ago. I know that several months back I was I had got some Archie jigs offline, and I was, I don't like that rubber collar that you use on skirts, so I always tie the skirt to it, and I'll just cut the collar off. That way the skirt will never go off the lure. I tied 3 or 4 of them and realized, wait a minute, this ain't the same Archie head. They've changed it. And it has stuck in everything that I can throw it at. So that has not any good. And that's what he was referring to about running it in the ground. So I asked Mitch, I said, well, since you had Archie, I'm sure you had a following. How many days did it take you to get Pico off the ground? He said 45 days. I'm like, whoa, 45 days. But he was already known, especially in the crappy crankbait market, making crappy baits, stuff like that. So it wasn't that hard for him to let everybody know, hey, I'm going public with this and let you know what's going on. So he informed me it took about 3 to 4 months to get the whole company moved to Northwest Arkansas, which I'm sure it did. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on there. And he's had multiple, he's a bait designer himself, so he's had multiple baits stolen from him over the years, which is typical in this industry. I mean, that's the way it is. Everybody's looking for the latest, greatest thing, and if they can't think of it themselves, they'll steal it from somebody else. I did a video on that, on my originals, with the 3 different soft plastics and how everybody's copied them, this, that, and the other, but the originals still hold true. So I asked him, I said, what all do you have in the inventory that you can still build? And he said he's still putting all the inventory together, even after 6 years. He said, this ain't going to happen overnight. He's still trying to put everything together, get the molds worked up to where he can shoot the plastics in them. And because when you're shooting when you're shooting plastic baits, they could build up a lot of heat. So you have to have cooling systems and everything else in the molds to do this. He says not all the baits are out yet. He's still working on some. And that he still even has original parts to the vintage baits that you see online. He still has the original parts, but still brand new. So I'm really curious to see what happens with that, especially with the slasher. I really want to see see him come back out with that one. That's a twin prop bait he's got. I'll put a picture of that here too. But he also ties his own hackle trailers on treble hooks for his Pico pops. I did get a video of the Pico perch in action, which I'll put right here. And as I was out today messing around, I threw a Pico perch to learn a little bit more about it, and then this happened. How about that? Little smallmouth on a Pico perch. Get that little nice knocker and a rattle to it. Thank you, buddy. Well, that was fun. There you go. The bait works. What can I say? So, just want to throw that out there, guys. I just want to give a shout out to Mitch. Thank you so much for supplying me with, stickers and everything else. No, I'm not affiliated with Pico. I'm not affiliated with Pico. But I like to see old companies come back. I really do. I love seeing them come back, and I love talking to the owners on the phone, if not meeting them in person. It's just really cool. And I think it's great that people still take interest in the old companies to bring them back in production. That to me is just awesome. I think that's great. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope that Strike King will start using the old molds again from the 70s and 80s. Those kind of heads, you can't beat them. But either way you look at it, a Pico perch. They're back, and they're easy to use. They just have a little tweak you gotta do to them once in a while, but it's all in your technique. It's not the bait, it's your technique. So they might be the perfect bait for you, they might not be the perfect bait for you. You don't know till you try a couple of them. That's all I got, guys. So until next time, may the Father bless you and keep you in Yeshua's name. And as always, fish on.